Good evening, friends. Welcome to this edition of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting. I'm Neal, your host from here at Field & Main. If you're joining us, please chime in and let me know. We're going to taste this sweet little red number tonight. Intriguing. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this one. It's quite a bit to see in the way of the wine, and it's evolving beautifully in the glass. I've just only opened it moments ago and poured myself a taste. So if you're joining and doing the same, let me know, just like Bobbin and Dean. Cheers to you guys. Welcome back this week. Had a little bit of a reprieve, thank goodness, from the temperatures and cooled off a little bit. Our red wine sales at this time of year always dip a little bit. And actually, pretty much all the sales. People are not exactly excited to eat as much and to drink as much when the heat is abounding as it has been for the past couple of weeks. In this case, though, with the beautiful mornings we've just had and the lovely afternoons, people are dining in the cabanas with the doors open. You don't need the air conditioning as much. It's been spectacular. So hope you're enjoying this. Chris and Barbara, welcome. Good evening. Great to have you along as well. There was a little bit of funk on the wine as we started, and or as I just poured it. That's kind of blown off a little bit, and it's beginning to express itself more. Dean, to your point, or Bobbin, yes, whites are the call of the order. There are people who perennially, 99% of the time, drink red wine, have come in the last couple of weeks and said, I think I feel like a white this evening, and it almost knocked me over. Howard O'Brien, for example, over at Chateau O'Brien, came into the bar, and I can definitely recall maybe pouring him a glass or a sip of a white wine once, but he was like, no, I'd like a white wine tonight. So that was an indication of the temperatures we're enjoying for sure. Curtis, Renee, Bill, Debbie, Fredericksburg, thank you guys. That's awesome. Wonderful. Great to have you with us this evening too. Dory and Carrie, thank you very much also. Probably Larry, maybe a little keystroke there. K is close to the L. Yes, Larry, got it. Well, all right, let's get started, right? So we've got a red wine. It doesn't look super heavy, so I don't think we're in the, at least in keeping with the conversation we just had, I don't think this will knock us out, but we'll see. Let's do the process, work our way through this. If you're new to this, we like to work a process of almost more deduction before we get to an understanding of the actual wine, before we make an errant guess. We're just trying to whittle away what it isn't more oftentimes than what it is, and then indicate what it might be and use a series of descriptions and evaluations of the wine, going from the visual first to the nose to the palate. And we'll work our way through that process. And as we go, feel free to chime in. I'll ask questions, I'll prompt, but share what you're thinking, share what you're seeing, smelling, tasting. Curtis, you're picking up a little medicinal smell. Yes, I think that was what, with a little funkiness kind of on the nose that then sort of gave way to a more herbal, medicinal fruit kind of note. So make note of that. But let's back up for a second. We'll go visual as you swirl your glass, right? As you're looking at the farthest point the wine reached in the glass, and then what transpires from that point. Are there tears that come down and cry down the side of the glass that form legs that hold firmly? And if they do, have they done so fast? Like, did they form quickly and sheet down fast? Have they gone slowly? Are they thick, and do they hold their shape and their form for a period of time? So those elements tell you something about the wine, potentially where it's grown or the conditions of the climate that it was grown in. So if you see tears that form slowly and then hold their form in the leg for a period of time, you might be looking at something that has a higher viscosity. And the higher viscosity comes by way of a product of fermentation, either sugar left in the wine by way of residual sugar. So think of maple syrup or honey and how it moves very slowly, versus water, which would go very quickly. Or think of that sugar fermented into alcohol, and the higher the alcohol, the more you might see this deep kind of striation of tears and legs. So with this one, they form, right? Everybody's seeing them. I see them on mine. They're pretty quick, but they hold their shape for a little bit. They're thin. Um, they're there, but not persistent. I mean, maybe a little bit, right? But even it's hard to show on the camera here, but the legs formed, the tears formed, the leg held, and just as the leg held, like the top portion began to just kind of sheet down. So this isn't holding. So what does that tell you? It's not the most robust wine. As you look at the color too, you can kind of see through it, right? So it's not an opaque wine. It has a little clarity to it, which is suggesting maybe a thinner skinned grape, and it's a little bit lighter in body. Not light bodied, it's not sheeting down quickly. So a medium weight wine, that's maybe what we're thinking. And when you get to the medium end of the spectrum, or medium portion of the spectrum, I should say, not the end, um, you don't know as much. What you do know is that you can kind of eliminate the outliers. So if this was the lightest red with like sheeting there, we might be talking about like Beaujolais Nouveau or something like that, right? Very little skin contact, almost rosé, just easy going. This has got more than that, but it's got a little bit less than something like Amarone, which would be really big, bold, raisiny, powerful, long macerations on skin. Not seeing that. So it's somewhere in between, and that's all you have to do at this point. You're looking at the color. It's kind of, what color do you see? It's getting good. Getting good. What color do you see? You see sort of that reddish, right? Are you looking at ruby and red? Are you looking at purple? Are you looking at some kind of bronze, brown, garnet, kind of tawny, that range? There's a little bit of that here for sure. So it's that red kind of color, but it's not super ruby. It's got a garnet kind of profile to it. I like that. Good one, Dean. Bobbin. Fun. So that tells you, right? And it kind of goes with the profile that we've been building. We didn't say deep, dark purple, right? It's likely not that Amarone, for example, or Cabernet Sauvignon, right? Something that's going to give you a bit more color and context. It's not probably Mourvedre, but it could be Grenache. It could be Pinot Noir. It could be Syrah, for example. We don't know yet, but you're just getting a sense. Like, all right, so it's in that middle range. It's not super rich. It's not super light. Sometimes when you look through a wine too, and it's kind of casting a shadow, and that color cast through it is orangish, it's like an indication sometimes that you're drinking Sangiovese. No, see, this is pretty reddish for me. So my lighting's a little different tonight. So you can sometimes tell something from the color and the color that is cast through its shadow, but through light kind of reflecting through it. So other than that, though, you're not looking necessarily to know a bunch, right? If you're in the white wine world and it was casting kind of this green tint to it, you might start thinking about, say, Sauvignon Blanc. There are times or points where the color tells you something specific. More often than not, it tells you what it's not. So moving from that point, we smell the wine. What do you smell? We were talking a little bit earlier about medicinal qualities. And as always, when we're looking at evaluating the nose, evaluating the palate, we're thinking about a few things: fruit, earth, and wood. What kind of fruit aromas are you smelling? What kind of earthy aromas and what kind of wood aromas? And when I say fruit, the whole spectrum of fruit, from tropical fruit, limes and lemons and passion fruit, to tree fruit, apples and pears, to stone fruit, apricots and peaches, to berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, cherries. What kind of fruit? Dean's backing me up a little bit too, which is good. He's noting that we didn't talk about the rim too. When you tilt the glass and then the appearance, there's a little rim variation, perhaps. It might be. So from the edge of the rim here at this to this point, is there a change in color? Does it go from kind of darker here to lighter here, or pure here to sort of tawny to brown here? And when that happens, it's more of an indication of age in the wine and color falling out of the wine in the form of sediment dropping. The other thing he's mentioning there too is this little rim variation. So you might get a meniscus, just this thin layer of a watery rim, and that might indicate a touch higher alcohol. There's a bit of that here. So there might be a little bit of richer alcohol. Red fruit and licorice coming from Larry, berry fruit, rosemary, oregano, earth. So back to that herbal kind of medicinal element. Barbara, fire it off again if you can. Comment didn't go through. Yep, Larry, I agree. No age really showing. This is probably a younger wine, but it has that evolved kind of wonderful secondary characteristic of those herbal notes beyond just the fruit note. Okay, so from the fruit side, there's red fruit, and then the herbal elements are there. That's going to be kind of qualified as sort of earthy, right? On the wood side, you're looking for things like cedar, smell of sort of toasted or roasted corn on the cob or the corn cob. You're looking at dill, perhaps, vanilla, and then you're looking at baking spices, a whole host of different baking spices. Are any of those things present in here? Maybe a hint, right? A little hint of wood, touch of spice. Mm. So once you've done that, you've looked for a few things. You built that profile from an initial phase, looking at a medium weight wine, light earth and or wood, some more wood there from the Curtis and crew. Absolutely. There's a quality about that that's for sure in keeping with what we've described, right? So red fruit, herbal element, lighter, light to medium bodied wine, maybe a little higher alcohol by way of the viscosity on the glass, but more about that watery meniscus. And then you smell this wine, and so you're already thinking like all that herbal stuff, probably taking you more toward Europe than it is to the New World, so to speak. Pipe tobacco's fun. Yeah, great. So once you have that kind of sense, you're holding on a little bit to this structure or this spectrum, these bumper rails that you're about to bowl the rest of the wine down, that help you think about what it might be and what it might not be. Begin your taste. And when you taste it, you're looking for a few things, as again, fruit, earth, and wood, but you're also looking at the structure of the wine. Is it light? Is it more medium or more robust? Is it like skim milk, 2% milk, whole milk? What is the acidity like? Does it make you salivate? Does it make you do so after you've finished your sip for quite a long time? Or is it a little bit shorter? And where is the tannin at in this wine? Is it very structured? Can you feel like cotton balls stuffed up against your gums? Or is it pretty easy going? Hmm. And I tend to like to pay attention to what few things pop out of the wine first, just if I'm paying attention to them. If I'm not paying attention to them, rather, and they just sort of emerge. Oh, wow, there's red fruit. Great. But I like to take the first taste typically and try to think about the structure. So from the acidity to the tannin to the overall weight of the wine, i.e., the alcohol potentially. And Curtis and crew are getting a little bit of alcohol on the nose, which is translating a little bit to the palate too. There's a tiny bit of a burn, a little bit in the back. Not a lot, but there's a little bit. And I wouldn't say this is really alcoholic by any means. It's a medium weight wine, right? So, or 2%, as Dean points out there, which is great. Medium plus acid. There is a little bit of acid here. Larry loves the balance between the acid and the tannins. Yeah, I think the tannins are pretty low, and the acid is kind of nice. The tannins are a little flirtatious. There's a fine powdery layer. I think of it like dust on a credenza or something. That yeah, that acid's medium plus. Second sip in particular, whew, explosive. acid. So from that standpoint, right, we've got red fruit, medicinal quality, light to medium body, but maybe more medium because it has a touch of alcohol. So maybe more like 13. We're thinking about like 11.5 to 12.5% being kind of a light bodied wine, 12.5 to 13.5, maybe 14, right? But 12.5 to 13.5 being medium, 13.5 to 14.5, 15 plus being robust. And maybe it's really more like 12 to 14 is sort of that medium range now, because a lot of wines in the 14 are more normal than not. And 14.5, 14.7, 15% you can certainly find. That's not here, right? That's not presenting like that here. What do you taste when you're tasting this now? What few things do you pick up on? What kind of fruit is on the palate? And does that match what you tasted on, or what you smelled, I should say, excuse me, what you smelled in the sensory evaluation? Yeah, completely agree, Curtis. That's great. Curtis and crew, someone behind Curtis there has mentioned cherry cough syrup vibes. Absolutely. I think of Luden's, and I use that as a descriptor for wine often, where that cherry is like pure candied cherry profile. So it's not actually the cherry, it's the cherry flavor, and the cherry flavor going with the medicinal element, right? The herbal quality of that cough drop. That's here for sure for me. Cranberry element, so tart fruit, and that kind of candied cherry fruit, cherry flavor more than cherry fruit, maybe. And those are up front, as Dean's pointing out, and then they are followed by the herbal elements. There's a little bit of cedar for me here. There's a touch of wood on the nose that's coming out now. And there's kind of a fresh, almost, maybe not so much fresh, ground meat that is then air dried a little bit. And so it's not gamey yet by any means, but it's getting a little tacky, a little bit ripe. But that's a faint note of that. Anything earthy beyond the herbal element and that meaty note maybe? And anything wood oriented? Are you picking up on that little cedar note? There's a little bit of a tannin expression in this that might be a little wood. Might be just a small, slight tannin quality of this, but there's like a sensation here, about 2/3 of the way back for me, that is reminiscent of chewing on a toothpick for too long. And it just sort of disintegrates almost in your mouth and becomes kind of waterlogged. And there's that sensation of woodsiness that you've taken out of that toothpick. There's a hint of that here. So maybe there's a touch of wood. A little bit of blueberry, kind of blue fruit coming on now. So a lighter to medium bodied, but with potential for some higher alcohol red with higher acidity, medium plus, medium, lower tannin, so not full-blown tannin. What varietals can we be talking about? What should we be talking about? Dean's suggesting, and that's always worth paying attention to. Like if you have that statement, I don't know why, but it makes me think of. You have to think that through and at least allow that to be. You might be wrong, but that doesn't matter. You're giving your body's giving yourself your clue. Your palate is saying, we've tasted something like this before. It's reminiscent of, and pay attention to that. That's the benefit of doing this more and more over time, is that you build up a taste memory. And while you might not be able to draw exactly what it is, you can get a sense. And Larry Grenache is definitely on my list. Southern Italian red, why not? Absolutely. You're thinking like Nero d'Avola from Sicily. You're thinking Frappato. You're thinking from Sicily. Nerello Mascalese from Sicily. We're going over to Montepulciano, perhaps. Aglianico, probably a little bit too big for that. Going north, for example, you've got Dolcetto and Barbera. I don't think we're talking about Nebbiolo, but there is definitely an earthiness. Sangiovese I mentioned earlier by way of the color spectrum. It wasn't in the context of this wine, but we can certainly consider it. And then we have the Grenache kind of Rhone blend, Grenache quality, but we could have Grenache from Spain. And Grenache can give us this light kind of profile, but with higher alcohol, which is fascinating too. Curtis, that's a great note. The notes here, the flavor and taste notes that we've pulled might suggest Sangiovese, he says, but the tannins suggest otherwise. And that's kind of cool. It's very cool. Larry, yes, this is a blind tasting for me. I have no idea. So my general manager and colleague, Julie, selects the wines. And I didn't show you this to begin with, but I just opened the same bottle you did. So I have no idea what is in this bottle. And sometimes it's neat when we taste wines here for our program. I may have tasted this wine with a distributor who's come along and poured it for us, but then I don't know it. And Julie will purchase and make the organization of these wines happen out of my purview, which has been great. And so I really am going through the same thing you are. I find that to be the most enjoyable part about it. I like it when I get it wrong. I enjoy it when I get it right. But either way, it's all kinds of fun. Light Italian reds, Valpolicella is absolutely a great call. That's a very good one, Barbara. Nice. That's a great call. I was just thinking about Corvina. We tasted it's got to be about a year ago now. We tasted some Corvina from Lake Garda, I think. It was Bartolino. And that was light and elegant and really pretty, and that was Corvina based. So Valpolicella is a place in Italy that grows 3 grapes principally. There's a couple others too, but Corvina is the dominant kind of part of that blend. And I think that's a very fair estimation. We could be talking about Austria, for example, too, and Zweigelt and Blaufränkisch and Saint Laurent. We tried a Saint Laurent recently too, so I doubt we're doing that again. But it should be in the consideration, like as you're building that profile. So light to medium bodied reds that have the potential for a little bit higher alcohol, but still are light, and expression red fruit, herbal. So Saint Laurent, Zweigelt, Valpolicella. The southern reds of Italy are a little bit bigger, but Sangiovese we're going to put in here, but maybe not because of the structure. Or it's a lighter version of that, just straight Chianti, for example, maybe. But then there's that earthen note. There's kind of a wet basement thing coming out now. Concrete. Does everyone feel comfortable with the idea that we're probably in Europe versus South America, the US, South Africa, Australia? I'm not getting an indication of those places necessarily. I tasted a Pinot Noir last night with Kyle, one of our colleagues here. He brought a mystery wine in, and it was definitely Pinot Noir. Like I put my nose in it and I said, gosh, this just reminds me of Pinot Noir and the Pinot Noirs I've tasted. But it's not Burgundy, and it kind of reminds me of Oregon, but it's not quite Oregon. There's something stemmy, and it was a cooler expression, but it had also ripeness. And so I called it New Zealand, but I wasn't positive on that. And it was a Canadian Pinot Noir, which was really fascinating, Niagara kind of Pinot Noir. Very cool to try. So sometimes that's what you're doing, right? You're getting a sense. I have this idea, it's Grenache, but maybe it's not Grenache from where I know it from, but it's from somewhere else, but you don't have a context for that. So you go with what you know, but it gets you closer, and then you add to your understanding. You build up that bank of, you make another deposit in that bank of understanding. So anything from Spain that and Portugal that fits this profile, I mean, certainly have tried some interesting Grenache. And from the Grenache side, to talk about that for a second, there's like 3 different soil types principally, right, that you'd grow Grenache on. You've got sand and sort of clay, and then sort of rocky. And when it's on sand, it's lighter. And so we have had in the past, I think actually we had it as a mystery too, but I can't remember for sure, Grenache from Spain that had a little sandy profile to it, a lighter expression. So 100% could be that. How about Mencia from Bierzo? Generally a little bit lighter in presentation. Could be a blend, as Curtis and crew are saying, including Sangiovese. So we could be in Tuscany, right, and have this nice little light blend with something else in it. Generally, when you see the blend in Tuscany, like the super Tuscans or kind of the easy Tuscans, they're Merlot and Syrah and Cabernet, so you get a little bit more boldness. But and where else? So we're kind of Valpolicella. We've got maybe a Grenache. This doesn't feel French to me. I don't know. I'm more in Spain and Italy. I don't think quite Portugal, but I could be wrong there. Something about that acidity that's high and spikes like that is more indicative typically of Italy. I don't think we're talking about Germany, right? I don't think we're talking about Austria. And for me, the answer about the rest of the world is no. I think I'm in Europe here. So you run back through, right? You check your biases, you check your evaluations, and a little bit higher alcohol. Valpolicella could do that. Grenache could do that. Mencia is not usually higher in alcohol, so maybe you take Mencia out. So sandy soiled Grenache. You could look at the fact that we said it had a little kind of garnet kind of color, so more old world probably than somewhere new world. And it has that lower tannin expression, so it's going to be a little bit of a lighter skin expression, so Corvina works out well for that. Mencia could, but not necessarily here. Grenache certainly can have this color and deeper. And the flavor profile, that herbal element that comes through, a touch of wood, but not an overt use of new wood, could be the case in all those wines. And you get past or through those kind of evaluations, and you look at the alcohol. We thought it was moderate. The acidity's high, textural tannin are low, that fruit profile, the flavor. And you start to think about, all right, well, where do I want to place my flag? And then you can also play the bottle game, which Dean and Bobbin are doing, and asking a question about the fact that it's in screw cap. And does the screw cap eliminate places and take us to other spots? This is the screw cap here. I don't know. Screw cap is the case for so many wines today. It's hard to differentiate. If we were doing this 10 years ago, we would have a greater chance of saying, well, it's probably from Australia or New Zealand. Austria certainly embraced the screw cap for sure as well. But now other places are around the world, period, too. And screw caps have gotten 1,000 million times better. So, well said, Dean and Bobbin. Planting flag in Italy using a flagpole made of Sangiovese. So Sangiovese for you. So Chianti, I'm saying, or something of that sort. I'm going to go on the other side. I think I'm going to go Valpolicella. Corvina-based blend, Valpolicella. Tasty number. It's a little compact, like it's a little like a Mazda Miata. Super fun, a little bit nimble. Airing everything out a little bit. Top down, zippy, but not super long. And I don't think we need to save this wine for a long time. I don't think there's a lot to be offered in aging this wine. It's just a cheap and cheerful, enjoyable wine that is in screw cap for that reason, perhaps. So yeah, all right, Italy. Corvina blend. So I'm in the Veneto. I'm near Venice, and 2021. 20. It's 2 to 4 years old, so it's a young wine. Anybody else want to offer their final thoughts? Plant flags made of any trunk material. Curtis and crew, where are you guys going? Barbara, how about you? Larry, what do you think? Where are you headed? Italy. Good. Yeah, it feels like it. So let's see. Oh my, how cool is that? Dang. So, Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir from Argentina, from Patagonia. How cool is that? Awesome. I mean, it's lighter. When I'm looking at the alcohol, I'm trying to find it. 14%. So it has a little higher alcohol. But beautiful color. A little earthier. I would not have placed, no, I just wouldn't have given it as much herbal element. This is really tasty. It's called Alto Lime, Patagonian Argentine Pinot Noir. It has a little bit more age. This is 2019, so perhaps that's part of the explanation of some of the evolution of the wine. It's got 5 years of age on it. Very neat. Gosh, that's fun. Totally not in the hemisphere at all, right? Blown out. Yeah, Larry, what? Exactly. They've got some very cool vineyards down that way in Patagonia. There are two Rio Negre down there, this valley that produces some very interesting Pinot Noir that was planted by Italians. So interestingly enough, right, Italian immigrants went down that way and brought cuttings and vines and brought Pinot Noir for some reason, or sourced that and planted that. And so there's some really cool Patagonian Pinot Noir in the world. We're tasting one right now. That's pretty fun. It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? The world of wine. We're together tasting wine virtually at this point, and we're all drinking a wine that was sourced in Marshall, Virginia, but came from Patagonia. It's amazing. It's just incredible. So cheers to all of you for playing along. Thanks for making it so much fun. Cheers to Julie for picking a great wine today. Remember when I said I love getting it wrong? This is the case. When you get it wrong and you get something like this, a little gem to try, and you broaden your horizons. So now you're tasting a light to medium bodied red, and you're thinking about what it might be. And the likelihood that it's going to be a Patagonian Pinot Noir again, very, very small. But you can throw out there in your mind, like, hey, is it Patagonian Pinot Noir? This one wine does not define the whole place, but you've tasted one now from Patagonia, and you have at a reference point. And the beauty of this is you do this long enough for a while, and all of a sudden, one like this is going to circle around again, and it's going to make you look like a rock star. So cheers, everybody. I'm finishing that sip. Until next time, we'll do it again in September and figure out whether we get it right or wrong. We'll still get to do it together, and that'll be the fun part. Cheers. I look forward to doing it. Seeing you again soon, hopefully. Before then, here at the restaurant, enjoying some alfresco dining, or joining us inside, of course. It's now getting to be the peak of the season. We've got tomatoes everywhere. We've got peppers everywhere. We've got corn everywhere. It's just the best time of year from a produce standpoint. And so come on in and enjoy what we've got on offer. And if